Born in the heat of Africa. Hello, everyone. I'm glad you're here. Please like and subscribe so I can tell more interesting stories. Now, let's get started. It's funny what you remember about your first life. I don't mean childhood. I mean first life. The beginning. The origin story. Before wheels, before gods, before long commutes, and cheap coffee. I remember a horizon full of gold. Not the metal kind, the sunlight kind. Heat shimmered on the grasslands like it was alive, and in a way, it was. We were born in Africa, not in kingdoms or stone cities, not even in huts. We were born standing under that giant sky, blinking into the light skin, warming like bread in an oven. And it wasn't poetic. It was survival. The lions were bigger than the ones you know now. The snakes slithered in silence, and the insects had opinions. But we learned slowly, clumsily. We stood. We watched. We made noise and tools. Sometimes the tools worked. Sometimes the tools made things worse. Like that one time someone tried to tie sharp rocks to a stick using wet grass. It flopped. Hard. We called it the Worm Club. Great for laughs, terrible for hunting. Still, we tried again. Historians still debate whether modern humans emerged fully formed in one part of East Africa, or whether we developed gradually across several regions. I say we were always wandering, even before we had anywhere to go. There was something restless about us. We weren't just scavengers. We were seekers. We followed animal trails, then the stars. We didn't know the word future, but we could feel it pulling. And even then, we were talking, not with grammar or podcasts, no, but with looks, grunts, dances, gestures. You knew what someone meant when they threw down a bone and raised their eyebrows. You just knew. We slept in tight circles. We listened to the night. The fire hadn't come yet, so we relied on each other to keep the hyenas away. One night, a child vanished, taken by something we couldn't see, only hear. The sound of dragging, snapping, silence. And we grieved. Yes, even then. We didn't build tombstones, but we stopped where she had last stood. We waited. We left food. One woman painted something on a stone, 4 lines and a circle. No one asked what it meant, but we all nodded. That was the first ceremony I remember. Bizarre fact. Scientists believe early Homo sapiens may have practiced symbolic behavior tens of thousands of years before agriculture. And sometimes symbolism looked like rocks shaped like faces, or scars worn like badges. I had both. Scars from a leopard that didn't quite win, and a stone I kept because it reminded me of the moon. I showed it to a girl once. She said it looked more like a broken foot. I married her anyway. We were strong, not because we lifted things, but because we adapted. You want a historical fact? Here's one. Homo sapiens emerged around 300,000 years ago, likely in Africa. And we were weird. We had smaller jaws than our cousins, bigger brains, longer limbs, and this thing called curiosity. One of us once followed a herd of antelope for 3 days just to see where they were going. Didn't bring food, didn't tell anyone. Came back exhausted and grinning. Said they found water, and just like that, we moved. That's how it always was. Not some grand council of elders saying, "Let us migrate now." No, it was small things. A track in the dirt, a dream, a child pointing and saying that way. We trusted those things. And when the rains came, we danced. It wasn't pretty. Lots of stomping, lots of yelling. But it felt good. We didn't know what rhythm was, but our feet found it anyway. And we danced in circles because that's how we understood the world, No beginning, no end, just motion and return. The tools got better, the stones sharper. We figured out how to crack bones for marrow, how to dig for roots that didn't kill us, how to trap birds with woven grass and pure spite. And we taught each other. That's the part people forget. We were teachers long before we were farmers. We pointed, we demonstrated, we failed, we tried again. And slowly we got smarter, not just with hands, with hearts. We learned who to trust, who to carry, who to sing for when their breath ran out. We didn't have nations, but we had names. I was named after the sound thunder made the day I was born. A deep rolling growl, a warning. I never liked it much, but when I shouted during hunts, people listened. Maybe that's all a name is, something that echoes. We stayed near rivers. Water meant animals, meant fish, meant life, until one year it didn't. The river dried, the animals left, and the sky turned from gold to gray. That was when everything changed. That was when we started to leave. Not just our camp, our continent. When the rains failed us, it didn't happen all at once. The rains just stopped coming. Not forever, but long enough for the ground to crack and the trees to drop their leaves like tired dancers leaving the stage. The animals knew before we did. They always do. The antelope left without saying goodbye. The birds changed their songs. Even the termites started building their hills higher, as if they knew something we didn't. We waited. That was our first mistake. Every season before, the rains would return eventually, with thunder like drums and air that smelled like waking up. But not this time. Days turned into weeks, then moons. The water holes shrank into mirrors. We tried digging. We tried praying. We even tried moving rocks in patterns to please whatever sky god we hadn't invented yet. Nothing. And you've never really known fear until you've watched your own shadow stretch longer than the tree that's supposed to shade you. The elders argued. Some said it was a punishment. Others blamed the neighboring tribe, claimed they had taken something sacred, though no one could agree on what. One woman said the trees were angry. I said maybe the world was just tired of feeding us. That went over well. Historians still debate whether the climate shifts that drove early humans to migrate were sudden droughts or slow, rolling changes in rainfall patterns. Whatever it was, it made our home feel less like home and more like a place that might forget us. So we left. We didn't call it migration. We called it walking somewhere else. At first, just to find food, then to follow game, then to chase rumors, whispers of places where the rain still danced and the grass hadn't turned to ash. There's something heartbreaking about abandoning your fire pit, about stepping over footprints and knowing you might be the last to ever see them. But hunger is a loud god, and thirst is louder. We packed light. Skin stone stories. A child carried a shell filled with dirt from our home, said it would help her remember how the air used to smell. Another boy insisted on bringing a stick shaped like a snake. We let him. Who were we to say no to hope? We followed the rivers, or what was left of them. Every few days, we'd find another group. Some shared food, some shared warnings. Some just stared at us, eyes hollow, bodies brittle. One group was roasting something that might have been monkey, might have been something else. We didn't ask. At night, we built smaller fires, quieter ones. The animals had grown bolder. So had the wind. There were moments, though strange ones, where beauty snuck in. Like the time we found a lake with red water. Not blood, just colored by the earth beneath. The children thought it was magic. We let them. Or the night we saw stars we didn't recognize. Someone said they were watching us. I said maybe they were waiting for us to earn the right to join them. That night, we slept under silence. You want a bizarre fact? Some of the earliest evidence of human migration paths are marked by tiny bits of obsidian volcanic glass from tools left behind. Stuff we made used and dropped, without ever realizing it would one day become a breadcrumb trail through time. We passed through forests, deserts, places where the trees bent in strange directions. One man swore he saw a creature with 6 legs and a face like a mask. I told him he needed sleep. He said so does the earth. And he wasn't wrong. The land felt restless, like it knew we didn't belong anymore. But we didn't stop. We couldn't. And eventually the air changed. It smelled wetter. The grass returned. So did the birds, new ones, louder ones. And with them came hope. But not everyone made it. Some grew too tired. Some vanished. Some just stopped walking. We built little piles of stones for them. Markers, memory cairns, a way to say, you mattered. Even if the wind would scatter them by morning. One old woman, just before she died, told me she had dreamed of a place where the sky touched the sea. I told her I didn't believe in seas. She said, you will. And that haunted me, because not long after we reached the edge. The land ended, and in front of us, impossibly wide, impossibly blue, was water. Endless, moving, alive. We had found the sea. And suddenly, the world felt much, much bigger. A sea between us and the world. There it was. The sea, not a lake, not a river, pretending to be something more. This was endless, alive, and loud. It moved like it was breathing, like it had moods. One moment, calm as sleep, the next shouting waves onto the rocks like a warning. None of us had words for it. Not really. We called it the edge, because that's what it felt like, the edge of everything we'd ever known. We stood there sunburned and blinking, wondering if we had reached the end of the world or the beginning of something else. Some people wanted to turn back. There's nothing out there, they said. I looked at the water and said, maybe nothing is better than starving. They didn't laugh. We weren't laughing much by then. Historians still debate whether early humans crossed the Red Sea into Arabia on foot during glacial periods when sea levels were lower, or whether they built primitive boats and paddled across. Either way, we left footprints on both sides. But before we crossed, we hesitated. And in that hesitation, something strange happened. A man brought a piece of driftwood to the camp. It was long, smooth, curved, beautiful, useless, or so we thought. He spent 3 nights carving it, singing to himself in a language older than sleep. When he was done, he set it on the water, and it floated. Not just floated, it glided, like the sky walking on water, a child whispered. We didn't understand what he'd made. Not really. But something about it made us lean forward, hearts thumping with a rhythm we didn't recognize, yet possibility. The next morning he was gone. So was the driftwood. Some say he drowned. Others say he became part of the sea. I say he did what none of us dared. He left before there was proof it was safe. That became the question. Do we wait for proof, or do we become it? The beach was a new kind of wilderness. Crabs scuttled sideways like broken thoughts. Strange birds flew low, calling in syllables we couldn't imitate. And the wind carried stories we didn't know how to hear yet. We made camp there, built shelters from palm and bone, cooked fish we didn't know were edible until someone dared to chew one. One woman found a smooth white stone shaped like a teardrop. She said it was from the moon. We believed her. Why not? You want a bizarre fact. Some archaeologists believe the earliest water crossings by humans happened over 60,000 years ago, possibly with little more than rafts made from bundled reeds and sheer determination. I say belief floated us more than wood ever did. Eventually, the sea dropped, just a little, enough to reveal sandbars and narrow crossings. And suddenly, the edge wasn't the edge anymore. It was a path, not an easy one. Oh no. The current still tried to pull us back. But we went, in groups, some swimming, some floating on logs, some just walking in water up to their chests, eyes on the shimmer ahead. I remember stepping in. The water was cold, but not cruel. Salty, unfamiliar, but it carried me, like it had been waiting. The crossing wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was believing there was land on the other side. We didn't know what waited for us. We didn't even know if we could drink the water once we got there. But something in our bones said go. Not everyone made it. We left stones again, little ones stacked near the water's edge. Some shaped like arrows, some shaped like nothing at all. But each one said, "We remember." And then one day we arrived, Arabia, a new land, a new smell in the dirt, a different wind. The stars even looked unfamiliar. We touched the ground like it might disappear, and for a moment, no one spoke. Then a boy laughed. It echoed, and just like that, we were somewhere else. We found new animals, smaller, quicker. We made new traps, dug deeper wells, shared stories that began with "back home" and ended with "but now." We didn't stop being who we were, but we started becoming something else. Historians call it dispersal, migration, colonization. We called it walking until your legs stopped shaking. But this was just the beginning, because what lay ahead of us was everything. Lost in strange lands. You'd think that once we crossed the sea, we'd feel finished. But oh, we were barely getting started. The land ahead was strange, not hostile, just different. It smelled like dust and almonds. The trees bent like they were eavesdropping. The ground was cracked in places, but bursting with green in others, like the world couldn't decide if it was dying or waking up. We walked. We walked until our feet grew new skin. Some days we found water. Some days we drank dew off leaves. One man claimed he could smell moisture. We didn't believe him until he led us to a spring bubbling under a pile of stones. We started calling him Cloud Nose. He hated it. Historians still debate whether early Homo sapiens in Arabia adapted quickly to new environments or were pushed further by harsh climate shifts. I think we just didn't have time to be picky. Everywhere we went, we saw signs we weren't the first. Bones, scorch marks, footprints hardened into rock, even handprints on cave walls that didn't match ours, longer fingers, broader palms. Sometimes it felt like the land was whispering, "You're late," and then we saw them, not clearly, just flashes. A figure behind a tree, eyes that blinked and vanished. Once a sound, half growl, half song. Not us, not animals, something in between. We weren't sure if they were real, or ghosts, or something older than either, but the encounters became more frequent. A pile of cleaned bones beside a fresh kill, fire pits still warm. Once a tool made of bone sharper than anything we had. We took it. We still argued about whether that was brave or stupid. Bizarre fact. Some researchers believe there were multiple hominin groups living in Arabia and South Asia around 50,000, 100,000 years ago, including Neanderthals, Denisovans, and possibly others we haven't even named yet. We may have walked into a world already inhabited, and that changed things. We stopped singing at night. We kept tighter circles around the fire. The children were told not to wander. But fear wasn't the only thing we found. One evening, we came across a tree with strange symbols carved into the bark. Circles, lines, a shape like a sun with teeth. We didn't understand it, but we felt it. Someone had stood there. Someone had thought about more than just food or shelter. Someone had wanted to be remembered. I touched the carving. It was still warm from the day, and I whispered, "We're here too." Maybe they heard me, maybe not. The landscape changed as we moved north and east, thicker forests, then back to open plains. We learned to listen to the birds. One kind screeched when snakes were near, another meant water. We started copying their calls. One boy got so good at it, he had a whole conversation with a parrot. We still don't know what they said. We left things behind, not just stones and bones, but songs, stories, a kind of echo that you can still feel if you sit in a quiet place and breathe through your mouth. I remember one place, clearly, a valley shaped like a bowl with rocks that hummed when the wind passed through them. We stayed there for a month. It felt safe until it didn't. One morning we woke to find every fish in the stream dead, floating belly up. No marks, no struggle. We took it as a sign, and we moved on. There were moments of joy, a new fruit that didn't kill us, a baby born without crying, a night where the stars were so bright they made the trees glow. But mostly, there was motion. We didn't stop because stopping meant fading, and we couldn't fade. Not yet. Historians describe this period as expansion without direction. I call it wandering with purpose we didn't understand. Sometimes we'd find groups like us. Faces familiar, but not quite. Words that sounded like ours if you squinted your ears. We traded, we danced, we left with new fire-starting tricks and new fears. One group painted their teeth with red clay. Said it kept the spirits away. We tried it. Didn't work. But we looked terrifying, which helped. Everywhere we went, we learned something new. A better way to wrap feet. A smarter trap for birds. A song that made children sleep faster. And we passed it on, because that's what we do. We walk. We learn. We share. And then we keep walking, until even the strange becomes familiar. The ice and the giants. You ever wake up one morning and realize the sun doesn't warm your face like it used to? Yeah, that was the ice. We didn't know what glaciers were. We didn't call it an ice age, but we knew cold, and we knew it was coming. It started with the air thin, dry, and bitter. The wind bit instead of kissed. Our breath made clouds even at midday. Our fire pits had to be dug deeper, closer together, like we were afraid the flames would run away. We wrapped ourselves in layers of fur, smelled terrible, and looked like walking rugs. But we were warm, mostly. At least warm enough not to freeze like that one guy who refused to wear squirrel skins. We called him Too Proud, Too Cold. Rest in peace. Historians still debate how early humans adapted so quickly to glacial conditions as they spread northward, especially without permanent settlements. I think the answer's simple. We didn't wait for comfort. We moved and learned until we survived. And oh, the giants. You've probably seen drawings. Mammoths, mastodons, woolly rhinos, creatures that looked like they came from a fever dream. And yes, they were real. We followed them, not because we were brave, because they left paths trampled snow into trails, because where they went, water followed. Grass grew. Life clung. We didn't take them down often. One mammoth could feed 100 mouths, but it took coordination, courage, and probably a little stupidity. One time, we managed it. Drove one into a pit. Took 2 days to bring it down. I still dream about that feast. Meat for weeks. Bones for tools. Skin for tents. A victory so big, we painted it on a cave wall with ash and blood. That painting might still be there. And yet not everything huge was helpful. We saw creatures we couldn't name, cave bears as big as nightmares, birds with wings that made no sound, cats with teeth longer than your hand. One chased us for a mile. We lost a boy. Built a fire that night and told stories about how he'd once tried to wrestle a snake with one hand and won. It wasn't true, but it felt good to say. Bizarre fact. Some fossil evidence suggests early humans may have used caves not just for shelter, but as strategic storage, stockpiling food or tools, even leaving symbols that some interpret as early memory aids. We started carving more, not just for function, for meaning. Lines, spirals, hands. A woman once carved a face into bone and said it was her mother. She kissed it before sleeping. That bone traveled with us for seasons. In the ice, we learned silence. You had to move carefully. A step too loud, and the snow cracked beneath you. A whisper too hot, and the air froze it mid-sentence. We learned to read snow like it was a map. Light spots meant danger. Dark ones meant safety. Tracks meant company. Blood meant we were too late. The sky at night shimmered in ways we'd never seen. Green ribbons, purple waves, lights that danced without sound. We stared. We called them spirits, signals. Some said it was the ancestors laughing. One man said it was the sky healing. Maybe he was right. We grew clever, not just with spears, but with stories, with fire. We lined shelters with mammoth bones, tied them with sinew, covered them with hides. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were adapting, becoming ice people. We even laughed again. Once a man fell through the snow into a rabbit den and came out with 3 rabbits clinging to his hair. We couldn't breathe from laughing. He was furious. The rabbits were traumatized, but we ate well. Laughter was survival too. We had a new rhythm now. Move, build, hunt, rest, repeat. But something was changing beneath all that. We were changing. Our tools grew sharper, more specialized. We began shaping bone into needles, stitching clothes tight enough to keep out death. We started naming more things, places, dreams, even silences. One boy named a tree because it leaned like his uncle. We started burying our dead with trinkets, not just goodbye, but remember me. And slowly, we stopped being just wanderers. We became something more, builders, dreamers, rememberers. And in the stillness of snow-covered nights, by the warmth of fire and the hush of wind, we began to realize the world was big, but so were we, shadows of others. It started with the footprints, not ours, not animals, something else, broader, heavier, like us but not. They led into a wooded ravine and vanished near a stream. We followed them for half a day, nerves on edge, hearts thumping like drums in our ribs. But we never found the feet that made them, just the feeling that we were being watched, not hunted, just observed. That was worse somehow. We didn't know what to call them, didn't even know for sure what they were. But we knew they were there. Shadows moving just out of sight. Tools found where we hadn't camped. Stones sharpened in ways we didn't teach. Food left at night that wasn't ours and wasn't poisoned either. Historians still debate whether these early encounters with Neanderthals were violent, friendly, or simply cautious. I say yes, all of it. Fear turns to curiosity. Curiosity turns to something that surprises you. They were different, stockier, paler. Their eyes caught light strangely, like amber reflecting flame. Their language wasn't like ours, deeper, more rhythmic, like stones dropping into a well. The first time we truly saw one was after a storm. A tree had fallen across a path. One of our hunters stepped over it and came face to face with a woman crouched in the mud, holding a spear thicker than his arm. They froze. He didn't shout. She didn't run. They just looked. And then she tilted her head. He mimicked it. That was the start. Not a handshake. Not a fight. Just mirroring. You want a historical fact? Neanderthals lived alongside early Homo sapiens for thousands of years, particularly across Europe and parts of Western Asia. Genetic evidence shows interbreeding traces of their DNA still exist in many of us today, which means we didn't just meet them. We loved them, feared them, fought them, traded with them, held their hands, sang beside their fires, maybe even stole their recipes. They probably salted things better than we did. One night, we heard singing, not ours, rough, low like wind, caught in a cave, but music nonetheless. We crept close, and saw their camp firelight flickering on bodies that moved with purpose, arms raised to the stars. One of our boys started humming along. They stopped. We held our breath, and then one of them joined in. The next night, they came closer, left a pile of animal hides near our fire. We offered meat in return. This went on for days. No words exchanged, just things. Then gestures, then touches, then names. My name was too soft for them. Theirs too guttural for us. So we called each other by gestures. Fire Eyes Tree, Hand Stone Shoulder. Crude, sure, but it worked. We began to understand each other in ways that didn't need words. They taught us how to shape spears with grooves that held poison better. We showed them how to stitch tighter, faster. They were amazed by our fire drills. We were stunned by their burial sites, meticulously laid out with flowers, shells, symbols. They remembered their dead. So did we. Eventually, the mingling wasn't just trade, it was children. Bizarre fact, scientists have found the fossil remains of a teenage girl with a Neanderthal mother and a Denisovan father. Real hybrid families, real love stories, or at least real campfire romances. But not everything was soft. There were fights, disputes over hunting grounds, tensions over water, a misunderstanding that led to one group's fire being scattered and peed on. Long story, bad memory. One winter, we were snowed in and tensions flared. Someone claimed a Neanderthal had cursed a child. Another claimed our people stole tools. It took weeks to recover the trust, but we did. Because under the cold sky, with wolves howling and food scarce, no one wanted to be alone. And when one of them died, a woman with a laugh that shook snow from branches, we wept beside their fire. They let us bury her, together. Historians still debate whether Neanderthals vanished due to competition, climate change, or genetic absorption into our species. I think maybe they never really vanished. They just became part of us. Not ghosts, roots. And sometimes, when the night grows too quiet and the wind stirs the fire just right, I swear I can hear their songs again, low, wordless, but full of meaning. Beyond the horizon. You'd think that after all the walking, all the winters, all the strangers turned family, we'd stop. But no, we kept going. That's the secret of our species. We never really stop. Not for long. Even when the food's good, the caves are warm, and the children finally sleep through the night, we look to the horizon and wonder, what if there's more? And more always waited. The land kept unfolding rivers, braided like hair forests, thick as secrets mountains, shaped like sleeping beasts. Every step further, the world revealed another face. By then, we were scattered. Some followed the coastlines, chasing fish and firelight. Some braved the snows into the northern steppes. Some disappeared into jungles where trees dripped water like slow clocks. And us, we headed east. And let me tell you, eastern lands were different. They breathed mist. The sun rose faster. The birds sounded like laughter. And the ground felt older, like it had been watching, waiting. Historians still debate the exact timing of when early Homo sapiens reached Australia, some say as early as 65,000 years ago. How rafts, coastal hopping, maybe blind luck and stubbornness. Whatever it was, we got there. I remember the sea turning turquoise, the islands like stepping stones tossed by a giant. We waited for low tides. We built rafts with whatever floated logs, reeds bound together with vines, and absolute faith. It wasn't safe. We lost people. One boy was swept away. All we found was his necklace tangled in driftwood. We strung it on a tree and left offerings every full moon. But we kept going. The sky changed again. New constellations. Different winds. And the animals, oh the animals. Kangaroo-like beasts that bounded instead of ran. Birds taller than men, insects that glowed like stars in the dirt. It was terrifying and exhilarating. We sang differently in these lands. We painted more. Hand spiral sunbursts. We told stories that the land itself seemed to understand. We whispered to stones, danced to thunder, carved memories into bark. We didn't just survive, we belonged. You want a historical fact? Some Aboriginal Australian oral traditions are believed to preserve memories of sea level changes over 10,000 years ago, meaning we weren't just migrating, we were remembering places that don't even exist above water anymore. That's not just history, that's legacy. We didn't all stay. Some went back, others went further, across frozen bridges of ice and wind into new worlds altogether. Bizarre fact, during the last ice age, sea levels dropped so much that humans walked from Siberia to North America across what's now called Beringia. It was cold, dangerous, but we were good at that by then. New lands, new dreams, and every time we touched new soil, we gave it new names. Names made from breath, from loss, from laughter. Some still echo today. I left handprints in a cave once, just 5 fingers and a smudge of ochre. I wonder if it's still there, or if someone found it and wondered who I was, what I saw. If I believed the world would keep going after me, and I did, because every new fire, every new face, every child's first step, it all said the same thing. Go on, don't stop, keep walking. Even now, we carry them with us, the ones who stood at the first fire, who crossed seas without knowing what waited, who loved and lost and sang anyway. They're in our bones, our blood, our breath. We're not just their descendants. We're their proof, their dream, their answer. A word count 1098. Closing summary, 300 words. And now, my friend, if you've made it this far, take a slow breath and let it out gently. Close your eyes just for a moment and imagine the glow of a fire dancing across a cave wall. Imagine the hiss of wind across ancient grasslands, the hush of an ocean no one had yet dared to name. Imagine being the first to wonder, the first to wander, the first to take one more step when every bone in your body says, stop. That's what we came from. Not kings, not castles, but courage, the kind that lives in silence, in curiosity, in cracked hands and open eyes. Our ancestors didn't know where the path would lead, but they walked it anyway. Across deserts, through ice, into jungles, over mountains, and into tomorrow. And every time they stopped, they left behind something small. An echo, a tool, a story, a song, a whisper of, I was here. And now, here we are, carrying their stories, telling new ones, still walking in our own way, still asking what's over the next ridge, beyond the next sea, inside the next dream. So sleep well tonight knowing that you are the ending of 1,000 beginnings, and the beginning of 1,000 more.